So, Once Human released 9 days ago, and feelings about the game have been pretty mixed. I've been playing it myself for the past week, and I have about 20 hours so far. I've accomplished quite a bit. I have a nice big house, a decent workshop, and a little garage. Oh, and this is Adam. I sorta kidnapped him and trapped his soul in this container to force him to mine iron forever. But he's a good sport about it. He's also just one of many. Oh, and Kenny. He's been by my side since day one.
This house is fucking ugly!
He has anger issues, we're working on it. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about the recently released free-to-play survival game, Once Human. There's been quite a bit of controversy and some misinformation about it too, especially pertaining to Steam reviews. Also, later in the video I'll get into Once Human itself and how I actually feel about the game after playing it. If you don't know, Once Human was developed by Starry Studios. I think I'm saying that right. And who is Starry Studios? Well, we don't know much about them, but Starry Studios is actually a newer studio under NetEase Games. NetEase Games is a publishing company and has a few well-known titles under their belt, like Eve, Naraka, and even Dead by Daylight Mobile, which I did not know that was a thing until now. So, you know who they are. Now let's talk about Once Human. Firstly, a few days ago, we got the first patch for the game fixing a ton of problems, but also causing a few. There was a massive bug with depositing items, and another bug causing you to lose territory or something. They rushed out a patch for these immediately. And as well as returning lost items, they also gave anyone affected a bunch of rewards as compensation. However, the bugs are not why the players are annoyed with the developers of Once Human. Originally, the main problem people had with the game was the TOS.
I've noticed something really interesting. There's kind of a trend right now where there's a lot of people on social media that are reading through privacy policies and also through TOS for games, freaking out about stuff that they don't understand the legal jargon for, and then just panicking all over the internet and then everyone parrots it.
Now, if you want a concise breakdown of the TOS and why it isn't actually bad, I highly recommend watching Pirate Software's video. I'll leave a link in the description. Hey, Editor Golden here. So, I'm just about finished with editing the video when Pirate Software just released a video explaining his, well, basically interview with the developers of Once Human.
Thank you for taking the time to discuss this with us and provide such detailed feedback about Once Human's gameplay. We understand Meta's concerns, so like the meta-humans, right? About mandatory seasonal resets and how they can affect your sense of progression and attachment to your character.
I highly recommend you watch it. I'll leave a link in the description as well. Back to the video. But basically it mentions in the privacy policy that you must consent to giving them your government ID. Except you don't actually have to give them your government ID. It doesn't apply to anyone outside of China.
If you're afraid of this, you're a dumbass. So where's the rest of the problem?
Because in China, you have to give them your government ID to play a live service game like Once Human. I think enough time has passed and nobody's really worried about it now. They understand. But we have a much bigger problem with Once Human. If you don't already know, Once Human has a 6-week seasonal wipe, and what is a seasonal wipe? Basically, you lose all the progress you've made on your character and all the progress in the world, including your house and your deviants. But you can save your house in a blueprint so you can rebuild it after the wipe. Not a huge fan of having to rebuild my house. It seems incredibly tedious. You have to grind all the copper, tin, iron, wood, and work your way through the workbenches again, re-leveling your weapons every time. And some people like to say this is no different than Rust, but it is. This game is not Rust. It's a completely different game, and having such short seasonal wipes just does not fit. And I see a lot of people saying they should have had some kind of decay system, and that's exactly what they should have done. Use some kind of material like wood or stone to keep your base from decaying. It would fix another problem that we're going to talk about a little bit later pertaining to the player clutter. But I've seen another big issue getting brought up about the 6-week wipe. If it's already like 6 weeks into a wipe, a new player isn't going to have nearly enough time to really do anything before the end of the wipe, especially if they are casual players, who can't sit down for 6 to 8 hours to grind out the game each and every day. Realistically, the casual player plays maybe 2 hours a day, and at that pace, it's pretty much pointless to even play Once Human. It definitely is an issue that needs to be addressed by the devs. Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything from the studio about the current outrage over seasonal wipes, but the game did just release. They could already be working on it. Now, changing from seasonal wipes to decay, or whatever method they choose, is not a small change. If they do decide to change it, it would most likely be after this first or even second season has ended. I do hope the devs will listen to us and change it. It's all about making sure they know how the community feels about the seasonal wipes. It's worth leaving a review on Steam. I wouldn't go as far as to say is to review bomb them though. Of course, the review bombing came from that whole TOS issue everybody was worried about, and from the words of Asmongold.
There are, in my opinion, 2 different categories of reviews. There's reviews about the game and reviews about gameplay.
Actually, the review bombing has not really done much to affect the game. It's mostly positive now on Steam. And while some of the reviews are just bull from people review bombing, there are a lot of valid negative reviews about the game.
The overall gameplay is average. The combat is boring due to enemies being mindless and very easy to fight.
Don't get me wrong, Once Human is a total eye candy. The world looks amazing.
MMO with a 6-week reset cycle. More like MMO.
Resets every 6 weeks. I'd prefer to not have to reset. I'm gonna play this one season, then I'm done.
And there were a few more concerns that up until reading these reviews for this video, I had no idea about. Some people were concerned about these 2 files that were silently added onto your startup when you installed the game, but I found an explanation from another review.
Those 2 startup entries are for an analytics tool called Apps Flyer. It's a commonly used marketing analytics tool to track installs/uninstalls of mobile games. I don't know why they included it in the PC release.
And there was something I noticed about both of these reviews. They both got a lazy automated response that pretty much says the exact same thing. That's not a good sign. If they won't even give a clear answer for why these files were installed without being disclosed, even if the files aren't harmful. Another interesting negative review I found was,
"So here's the deal. Interested in cosmetics, battle pass, or microtransactions? You and your friends started in different servers? Guess what? There's no server transfers. Here's more. 1 character per server, and you have to rebuy everything. You guessed it. Every cosmetic that you've bought, and that battle pass that you've worked hard on."
Yeah, I have not bought anything myself, and I don't plan on it. So this doesn't really apply to me, but either way, this is terrible. Why are cosmetics that you paid for not transferable to another server? That doesn't really make any sense. This is either the result of developer negligence, and they didn't even think about transferring, which is what I think happened, or it's deliberate, so people have to buy the cosmetics every time they join a new server. This could be a mistake on the developer's part, and hopefully, just like the recent depositing bug, they'll fix the problem, and maybe compensate the players affected. So now I want to talk about the servers, and this is something that I had thought about, but this review I found summarizes it pretty good.
This is honestly a really fun game, but they limit the number of total characters that can be made on a server instead of limiting how many players can be on the server at once. This creates a huge problem long term. Not only does it mean you can never join your friend's server if it hits its character limit, it also means if anyone quits, like the tons of people who check out AF2P game then bail, after a couple weeks they all continue to count towards the server character limit. For every server they made a character on up to 10, those servers will still be considered full even if they only have 3 active players who don't even share the same playtime.
So a very valid problem that I am curious to see how Starry Studio fixes. And not to mention how ugly and laggy these houses make the game look.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
And who thought having to create a character for every server you join was a good idea? Not only does it cause the problems previously mentioned, but this means you have to play through the tutorial for every server you join. So we've talked about all the pressing matters with Once Human. Now let's get into the game itself. I haven't really reached the end game yet. I only have tier 3 weapons and armor and a tier 3 motorcycle, and I also have a few deviants I've captured. I've already unlocked a decent portion of the map, and to be completely honest, I don't see myself finishing the game, even though it has been pretty fun. Fortunately, most of the time, I had a pretty laggy experience. This is mostly my fault though. My Wi-Fi USB was worn down and I just got it replaced yesterday. Now I'm able to play just fine. So it wasn't because of Once Human servers. Overall, if the game didn't have the looming seasonal wipe every 6 weeks, this game would have had some more meaning to it. As it currently is, it just feels pointless to put hours into it. But I think if they decide to make some changes, it would definitely be worth playing again, especially with some new updates and server changes. And don't get me wrong, the game itself is pretty fun. I did enjoy it. In some ways, it's very similar to a game I once wanted to create myself. I do think it needs to be more polished, but nonetheless, I hope they address these servers and cosmetic issues. Anyway, hope you've all enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. I know I said that I had a One Piece video in the works, and I still do, so stay tuned for that. That said, peace out.